It's time for MacBreak Weekly. We dissect the Apple invitation. Yes, there are events coming up next week. We'll talk about some of the things you can expect, including new iPhones, new Apple Watches. What is this sleep tracking feature they're talking about? Schooltime mode and AR glasses. There is lots to talk about. Rumors abound next on MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 677. Recorded Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019. The picker-upper thing. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Protect your online privacy with one click. It's that easy. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to expressvpn.com/MacBreak. And by ZipRecruiter. Hiring is challenging, but there's one place you can go where hiring is simple and smart. That place is ZipRecruiter, where growing businesses connect to qualified candidates. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. And by Eero. Never think about Wi-Fi again when you can have brilliant, hyper-fast, super simple Wi-Fi with Eero. Go to Eero.com/MacBreak and use the offer code MacBreak at checkout to get free overnight shipping with your order. It's time for MacBreak Weekly. The last show before the iPhone 11 era has begun. Lori Gill is here from iMore. She's managing editor there. Lori, you called it. You said you were going to get the invitation Thursday, and you did.
I know. I was even saying, man, if I would have only made a bet on that, I would have made a little bit of money.
Well, I've been giving you credit on every show, saying Lori Gill said it'd be Thursday. So you got your invite?
That's good enough. I didn't.
Oh, God.
I have not been invited to the iPhone event.
But Renee Ritchie got his invite, right, from
Renee
Vector? Did you get yours, Renee?
I did. I missed Lori already, though.
I know.
Lori's just up the road. She could just go. Get a Renee Ritchie wig. A Renee Ritchie wig.
I'm going to go back to what I used to do, which is I just sit around outside and wait for cool people to come talk to me. So I'm still going to be.
You're going to go
there.
down there?
Oh,
wow.
You are the cool people, Lori.
It's so close.
Do they let you in the door? I mean, like, did they let you in the fence? No, you have to sit outside?
Yep.
That's
and
depressing.
I sit outside with that puppy dog face. Of,
That's so depressing. Andy Iannacco's also here from Boston Public Radio. Hello, Andrew. Also at the library again.
Yes. And Lori, what you should try to do is that because this is like a San Francisco area company, there's the tradition that they upheld they got from the Grateful Dead, where if you look disheveled and looks like you hitchhike all the way to Cupertino, hold up a cardboard sign that says, "Need a miracle," and somebody who has an extra ticket will give it to you.
It helps if you're wearing patchouli oil.
Yes.
I don't think any of that works anymore.
No, it doesn't.
Might have in the 70s, but not today.
Here's the invite you didn't get. I didn't get. Andy didn't get. Renee got. By innovation only. Okay, now I didn't notice this, but Christina Warren did. What's wrong with this picture? It's an apple. It's glass, which is kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. There's only
Jello shots.
There's only 5 colors.
The wrong
There's only 5
the blue
colors.
Is a lie.
And the blue is a lie. And is there purple? And there's no orange?
There is purple,
but
no
orange.
Green is the new blue, and purple is the new orange.
And what's missing? Blue? No, blue's there.
Orange is missing.
Orange.
And then blue should be what?
Well, the rumor is that the iPhone XR orange and blue will be superseded by the iPhone 11 green and purple.
So do you think these are going to be the colors of the phones?
But there's blue there, so they can't. This has got to be the shimmery new glowing Apple logo on the iPhone 11 Pro, which I just made up.
Or it could just be an invitation.
Again, I'm
invitation.
gonna keep going with Jello shots. Those are different flavors of Jello shots that are going to be available in the lobby at the spaceship when you come in.
Karsten has a theory. Tell us your theory, Karsten.
All right. They haven't had a new iMac in like forever.
Uh-huh.
And Joni Ive is on the way out.
Yeah.
So they are going to, their one more thing at the end is going to be a tribute to Joni's first iconic design. They're going to go back to candy-colored iMacs.
The Bondi Blue iMac.
I just want a Bondi Blue iMac.
This kind of, well, because your name is Karsten Bondi. Interesting theory.
That would be pretty fantastic.
Yeah. It is the post Johnny Ive era, so I guess there might be something.
Is that sort of a risky tagline for Apple to use? I mean, like, we're only a few years away from Phil Schiller saying "not innovating anymore, my ass."
Would have been funny if
they're
it said "by courage only."
I mean, they have converted the whole world to no headphone jack yet, so they could do that. But
That's true.
It just seems like they're setting people up to say, "Oh, innovation only."
What? And honestly, an iPhone launch these days is not usually particularly innovative. Maybe it is in their eyes, but from the outside world,
internally. But like, who cares if it gets late? Like a couple years ago, you got this whole new custom disk controller that made sure the iPhone never dropped a frame, never failed to record.
Right.
And that's like, they built that from scratch, but nobody cares. Nobody sees that.
There's innovation inside, but it doesn't look any different to us. It still looks like a slab of glass.
Even the stuff that they innovate on the outside, people still say that's not innovative. So they really just kind of lose all around when they use that terminology, just because there's so many naysayers at that sort of concept of innovation. Like, I think AirPods would be a good example of that. A lot of people saying that's
sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah, we know that, Siri. You don't have to rub it in.
Yes.
Oh, to Lori's point, I was just on Twitter talking about the rumors of the tile thing, which I'm sure we'll get to. And someone said, "Oh, but AirPods were so revolutionary at the time, and the tile won't be." And all I could remember was people going, "AirPods? That's hot garbage. We don't need AirPods." But in 5 years, they'll be saying, "Oh, those tiles, those were great, but that next thing is going to be stupid."
So if you go,
I think so. The idea would be that innovation would be like literally a new product that's never existed before, and really, frankly, Apple has never done that. They've never had a new product that's never existed before. What they do is they sort of like take the research of what's out there now, what technology they can do, and what people actually need in their day-to-day life. And that's how they innovate. And from the outside looking in, we're just seeing like, well, this looks like the same, wireless earbuds, for example. Wireless headphones had existed for a long time, so it didn't seem like it was that big a deal. But when you go deeper into what the true wireless technology really means, you realize like, oh, that actually is innovative. It just doesn't look like it from the outside perspective,
Well, it depends. It could be an Apple TV where it's like, we decided we needed to have one of those, and if it takes us 4 or 5 years to figure out what we can do with one of those that's interesting, we just decided that we have a hole that's in our product line, the shape of an Apple TV, and well, what do you know? Here's an Apple TV. It happens to fill that hole nicely. So I think that it's time to let go of the expectation that everything that they do is going to be mind blowing. Everything they're going to do is going to teach the industry how they should have been doing things. I think that it's hard to come up with. It's hard to hit that kind of batting average every single season, and I think it's unfair to demand that.
Yeah, but they're the ones who said
ordinaries
by innovation only. I mean,
well, that's and they are the miserly old man wearing the high silk top hat after he knows that there's been school is out because of a snowstorm. So yes, we're going to make fun of them. We're going to make mighty fun of them, but it'll be okay. They got money to wipe off their tears.
Andy, that is the weirdest analogy I've ever heard you make. I had to really think about the guy in a top hat, school's out in a snowstorm, to understand that what you're talking about is somebody's going to throw a snowball at the top hat. But
I'm saying,
holy cow!
When you find yourself picking up your crushed beaver skin top hat off the ground, off the muck, you have to say, you know what? I really should have seen that coming.
That's a Dickensian metaphor. I'm impressed.
Thank you very much. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Ladies and gentlemen, Andy Anako.
In a nutshell.
I'm here to class the joint up.
Yeah.
Don't I look classy?
Yeah, class the joint up. So I guess we've talked about this ad nauseum. This is always the worst week, the week before an Apple event, because there's probably not much to say at this point that we haven't already speculated. But maybe as we get closer, we have more confidence in our prognostications. Will there be something besides iPhones?
Watches.
Yes.
Probably watches, right?
That tile tracker, or we can't call it a tile tracker. The Finder
tile-like tracker. Yeah. So this is another Rambo discovery. Guillermo Rambo discovers these 9to5 Mac in code. He found an image of a round tracker-like object and code that sounded like you would have, a Find My iPhone, including augmented reality, which is kind of neat, that you would aim your phone around and find the keys or whatever the tile was attached to.
That sounds fun.
That sounds great.
Or what I keep going back to is that this sounds so much like the iPhone 7 event to me. Like the entire setup to this, we've got a phone that's going to pretty much look like the other one, but get an extra camera, have some new finishes, and have a killer accessory. But instead of being AirPods this year, it's going to be these tile things. And they could basically just rerun that whole event with all of these things being added to the iPhone 10 platform now. And that would make, like, I think an ideal iPhone keynote for them.
This is a logical thing for Apple to add, right? This is probably another, it's like services. It's not enhancing the phone per se, but it's adding a new service.
It fits with the Find My app, and people can go buy it like they bought AirPods. I mean, it's just it feels like very Apple Play.
Yeah. It's kind of an
it's also
incremental.
An example.
Go ahead.
It's an example of that idea of not innovating, in that on the surface it seems like this isn't an innovative feature. There's dozens of fobs that exist in the world right now that do the same thing, but Apple's probably doing something different, adding some kind of feature that's within the Apple ecosystem that makes it more, works better, works longer. The augmented reality idea, all of this, like, that's the innovative part. But on the surface, it's like, well, that's not innovative. There's already a bunch of tile-like trackers that already exist. So
there's also some evidence that those companies aren't doing that well. Tracker pivoted, tile is having, I think, financial difficulties. It's not a good business. Of course, for Apple, it might be a perfectly fine business because it's an adjunct to something.
And especially if they're including that in some version of services. So if it were something like, for everyone who spends the $10 a month for their iCloud service, this finding, tracking, fob,
Bluetooth tracker
is incled in that tracker. This tracker,
Air Beacon.
like the
I'm going to call
service
it
for
Air
tracking
Beacon.
it is
Air
included.
Beacon.
Particularly if
Air
it works
Beacon.
just like the actual tile does. Anytime that your book bag or your bicycle is near any iPhone, then that will actually log it and track it into you. That's in the United States and in the UK at least, that'll be pretty hot. But this is one of the reasons why it's fun. It's recreational for me to talk and for us to talk about Apple rumors. But every single time, it's like even when you've got the whole thing, the hardware, the specs absolutely locked, you don't really understand what the point is until Apple tells you the story of yes, it's a tile tracker, but we're using it for something else. Or yes, we have 3D cameras, but we're not using it for taking 3D pictures. Here's why we put this hardware in and how we're going to make the most of it. They don't do this sort of stuff without a really long-ranging plan and without almost like introducing a new character into a story that they're telling.
Yeah.
The other thing that's really cool, though, is they spent an inordinate amount of time at WWDC and later at Black Hat describing the technology they were using to track objects while keeping the objects anonymous and the trackers anonymous, and just building out that technology. And they used the Mac as the way to sort of talk about this, which is not unusual for Apple. They often talk about existing technology in place of new technology that's going to come. But it was just fascinating. And if they can build out that network and suddenly all your stuff is tied into that network, then that becomes, to Andy's point, like it's like the tile thing, but they have a whole security message, a whole privacy message, and it ties into Apple's massive deployed base of devices at the same time.
It does sound like it's a reasonable product for Apple, even if other companies have had some struggles getting people to buy it. It just feels like it's a natural for Apple.
And all your dogs can wear them.
And no. The target market is somebody's going to be the first person to have like a little like red like rubber thing case you snap it into that makes it look just like one of Spider-Man's Spidey tracers. So you can throw it like at your kid's book bag, and now you're tracking your kid.
Yep.
Fine, I'll make that fortune myself.
Here's an interesting tweet John Gruber's pointing to from Max Seeleman, MacGuru17 on Twitter. It seems that Apple has done a full rollback of all iCloud changes from Catalina iOS 13. Gruber retweeted and said, interesting but unsurprising news. iCloud Drive is simply far too important for it to be buggy. So the improvements like pinned files that were announced at WWDC will not be in iOS 13.
Some developers were talking about that last week when Apple pushed out 13.1 early, that a lot of the iCloud stuff had become a barrier to them deploying that it just wasn't working for them.
Right.
So it's easy to see Apple.
We've seen that happen before, right? With iCloud Drive.
Someone made a really good suggestion that Apple shouldn't announce the new version of iOS as coming this September, but just show you a bunch of features that will start coming in September and follow with subsequent versions over the years, and that way over the rest of the year, and that way give them more breathing room to get some of the more complicated stuff out without having to reposition it live all the time.
Absolutely. When coincidentally, the new version of Android 10, is rolling out today. Leo and I are both downloading it as we speak. And one of the things I like about the way Android does updates is that, yes, this is going to be the huge infrastructure and architecture update, but over the course of the next year, if they want to update the camera app, they're going to update the camera app. And if they want to add new features to even like the way that they draw web views, they're going to be able to deploy something like that in the middle. So they don't have to drive everybody towards making sure that you hit the September 3rd release date for everything. They can simply say, here's the stuff that we need to have ready for developers on September 3rd, and now here is our timetable, not spreading our resources too thin, but making sure that when we update maps, it's going to be the right update. And when we do this new protocol for installing apps without having to rescan the entire device, that also is going to work correctly without us having to totally reset everything. So I would love to see Apple suddenly give us this wonderful, like, suddenly Easter present of saying, oh, we didn't announce this in September when we showed off the new version of iOS, but we are pushing out an update that will now enhance the camera app in the following 11 Ginchy ways, and it's just going to simply be pushed out today. That would be wonderful instead of having to wait until September.
We should point out Max Seelman is one of the leads, co-founder and lead developer at Ulysses, and so they're very interested in what the features are. In fact, it sounds like better for us that this time the rollback came during the beta. I applaud that they'd rather don't ship features than ship them in a broken state, of course, because as an app developer, he's the one who's going to have to deal with a broken iCloud Drive. Ulysses is highly reliant on iCloud Drive, I think. So there's that. That's hard news. And then there's more speculation. Sleep tracking may be a part of either the new Apple Watch or an Apple Watch update. What do you think? Will it be for the new watch only?
Does it need tech? I mean, they bought Beddit, and Beddit is a little device that you use with the Apple Watch, but I don't know if it needs anything extra. And I forget who wrote it out. Was it Guillermo as well? Might have been Guillermo as well.
Yep.
But he was saying you could have a day and night watch. You could keep your old watch.
Well, that's the problem. That's the problem is the Apple Watch needs to charge, and if you're wearing it at night,
well, it would remind you to charge, just so you have enough juice to get through the night. I think is part of the.
So now you'll be charging before you go to bed and after you wake up. I don't know.
While you're in the shower, you just throw it on the charger.
That's not
then
enough
you get
time.
Well, if it comes out. If it's a software update that's going to be available for all Apple Watch, which of course we all wish that to be the case because we want that feature, then yeah, you do have to kind of consider how often are you going to charge your watch. But if it comes out with a new Apple Watch only, if it's only going to be available on Series 5, that leads me to believe that maybe they've made some battery improvements that's going to allow you to do something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
battery. There you go. You're right. If they're going to do new Apple Watch, that's almost certainly one of the things they'd improve is battery life.
But I want an always-on screen, not a sleep tracker.
Yeah, I do want an always-on screen. Yeah.
Or even just fast wireless charging. If you could charge that thing back up.
What about that? What if the
minutes,
charging's faster on the new one?
Well, it's fast enough that they couldn't use Qi for it. I mean, they built out their own charger because Qi wasn't going fast enough already for them.
Right.
And also, as Renee keeps saying, that there's always a cost to fast charging. Nothing comes for free.
Right.
And when you have a battery that's as small as that, you really want to bash its brains in every single day. But yeah, I really think that the next big signature feature of the Apple Watch that Apple's really driving towards is battery life. The ability to not have to make sure you put it on the charger every single night or when you wake up and you're in the shower. That is still like the one consistent consistent complaint of the Apple Watch, which is the best wearable on the market today, is that if you forget, you will maybe get a second day out of it, but you're certainly not going to get a second night out of it. And it's just so inconvenient to make sure that you add that to your nightly rhythm, to making sure that to make sure that you put this watch where it's supposed to go to charge every single night. And every time I test out another fitness band or another smartwatch, I really wish that it were as nicely made as the Apple Watch. I wish it were as pretty as the Apple Watch. I wish it were as functional as the Apple Watch. But the fact that some of these Fitbits will run for 3 or 4 days without charging, that's damn compelling, isn't it?
Yeah. Other rumors, according to Mac Rumors, there's a feature in the next iOS 13 called Schooltime. This is for iOS and watchOS, a do not disturb mode for school kids, with users or parents able to customize app restrictions in the Apple Watch app for iOS prior to automatic or manual activation. Yes. It can be set to a trigger based on a preset time of day, maybe location too, I don't know. And then
there's already features not entirely unlike that in the parental controls anyway. So I'm wondering how does this differentiate itself from what already exists, or is it just a renaming?
It's a branding.
Of the feature that's there.
Yeah, because they get up on stage. Because what does Apple want? They want to sell more watches. Now let's sell watches to your school kids because of this great new Schooltime feature. It's made for school, right? So maybe they'll enhance it.
I mean,
yeah.
You want kids taking tests with Apple Watches?
Well, but also, do you want your kids to, if they really are getting into, again, as Renee said, talking about at the hackers conferences about ways of doing tracking anonymously and securely by respecting privacy, wouldn't you want to buy your kid even a $200 watch if they're kind of responsible? If you knew that you're not going to give them a $400, $500, $800 phone, but knowing that every time that they walk past anybody with an iPhone anywhere in the world, this thing is going to say, oh, by the way, your kid was here at this time and moving towards this other phone about 20 feet away. That would be another really, really compelling thing. The Apple Watch has been around for long enough now that they don't have to really market it as a single-use product. They don't have to tell one focused story, which used to be fitness. Now they can say that here is the smartwatch that you would want your kids to have because it will allow them, it will keep them healthier, it'll keep them active, it'll keep them moving, and it'll keep them safe. That's the way you sell $250 watches as Christmas gifts to kids.
Here's an interesting rumor from MacRumors.com. They apparently got an internal build of iOS 13, which includes a Start Tester app that can switch in and out of a head-mounted mode, lending people to think maybe this is something for an augmented reality headset.
Come on, wouldn't those glasses be round? I mean, we know those glasses would be round.
No, well, rounded corners anyway. There are 2 head-mounted states for testing, including worn and held. An internal README in iOS 13 describes a Starboard system shell for stereo AR-enabled apps. They also file also suggests Apple's developing an augmented reality device codenamed Garta. Possibly as one of several prototypes under the T288 umbrella. This is from MacRumors.com. I'm not sure where they got the... this is not the public iOS code. This is an internal iOS release.
Yeah, well, that could mean anything.
Right.
That's almost useful from an Intel sort of status. And I keep asking myself, I don't know of any technology that is going to be really functional for augmented reality mounted in a pair of glasses.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that doesn't exist. I'm saying that even when you look at like research papers, when you look at pie in the sky patent filings, I don't know of any technology right now that could let you have something that is at least even passable. Like, hey, I've got my old man thick framed 1963 style glasses on, and you sort of pass unnoticed amongst humanity. I don't know of anything that's going to make that work. So either Apple's going to pull a wonderful rabbit out of the hat, or we're still talking about stuff that's way, way off in the future. And for now, Apple's happy creating AR experiences for the phone that they can then use to add to the knowledge base that they're creating for building a really good wearable AR device.
This could be like the Wallaby. Like the Wallaby was a device tethered to a Mac Pro that was testing iPhone stuff, and this could just be the code that lets you use an iPhone to test future AR glasses.
There you go. Right. Yep. All right, let's take a break. I guess the answers to all of our questions will be 1 week from today, 10 a.m. We're going to change our schedule around a little bit. No iOS today. Next Tuesday, we'll defer that. Well, it will be, but it'll be just not in the morning. We're going to start our day at 10 a.m. with coverage of the Apple streaming event. Micah Sargent and I will be anchoring here and commenting as we hear about what Apple's announcing next Tuesday.
Hopefully, Doctor.
And Doctor. Oh, that'll be fun. He'll be ranting and raving. and that'll add some color to the mix, literally and figuratively. I think that'll be a lot of fun. Good. And then after that, right after that, we'll do MacBreak Weekly. That'll probably be a little later than our usual time, but not much later, right after the Apple event. And I gather that Renee and Lori will not be on the show next week because they're going to be tied up with something else. But we'll find some people to come in. And
I'll be sitting out on the sidewalk with my cup.
And your patchouli oil.
Please invite me.
Renee.
And your bong.
Renee will be in a pop-up optometrist studio on the Apple campus being fitted with his new prescription.
Boy, would that be awesome.
But they would be round,
that he's not allowed to tell that he's not supposed to tell anybody that they're actually Apple AR lenses.
He wants the Harry Potter version. And so
I'm doing Michael Caine cosplay. That's the only reason why I have these big glasses now.
And then right after MacBreak Weekly, we'll do iOS Today. So we'll just push it to later in the day. And then Security Now is the one that's going to have to move, and that'll move to Monday of next week. We'll do Security Now a day early. So just some programming notes. I'm excited. I think it'll be fun. Yep. Lisa broke her iPhone yesterday, so it's perfect timing.
Perfect time. Oh, yeah, she broke her iPhone, Leo.
Yeah.
There's an event coming.
The magnetic pull of toilets never gets stronger than the week before an Apple iPhone event.
She's using mine right now. Because she needs a phone, and I have a few extras. So I gave her my iPhone, and she put her SIM in it. And she said, "Oh, this is so much faster than mine was." So, well, they're both 10S Maxes, but I think she had a dud, honestly.
Yeah.
And was suffering for a year with it. But I said, well, good news, you're getting a new iPhone on, what is it? It'll probably be about the 20th, right? Because the event is the 10th. Pre-orders probably that Friday the 13th. And that means usually shipping and arriving on the 20th would be my guess.
Is Apple superstitious? Are they not going to do a Friday the 13th pre-order?
They did an iOS 13.
I would hope so. Yeah, iOS 13 on Friday the 13th. Perfect.
That's true. Yes.
In fact, I expect some wordplay around that on Tuesday.
If they were really good sports, they'd have Tom Hanks do the introduction, and his Fred Lovell like jumpsuit.
Apollo 13.
Launching Apollo 13 on the 13th minute of the 13th hour.
Houston, we have an iPhone. Yeah, I think that's a good. Actually, that'd be a good bit, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
In his Mr. Rogers costume.
All right, we got other stories. There is news. We'll have more news with our team in just a bit. But first, a word about ExpressVPN. Lori, when you're sitting out front, snarfing the free Wi-Fi from Apple's campus, you might want to consider using a VPN to protect your privacy, to protect your security. You don't know who else is sitting out there. ExpressVPN's our choice for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's very easy to use. They have apps for every device. One button click and you're secured. You're encrypted. Your privacy is protected. That's nice. But and it runs beautifully. It's about as fast as practically as fast as without a VPN, which I really love. The other thing I like about it is ExpressVPN's privacy policy. You should read it, but they just got audited. A third-party audit said, yes, they live up to their privacy policy. Furthermore, they looked at this new cutting-edge server technology ExpressVPN's using to protect your privacy. They call it Trusted Server. That's what ExpressVPN's running on their servers. It prevents the operating system and apps from writing to the hard drive. So it kind of guarantees absolutely no information about your use of ExpressVPN will be saved to their hard drives. Their servers are clean. It's a whole new standard of privacy and security. This third-party audit did look at Trusted Server and said, yep, does exactly what it says it does. This is really good news for anybody who's looking for a VPN because, of course, the point I always have to make is it's important to choose wisely with your VPN because whatever security issues you're worried about, privacy issues you're worried about, on your own connection, you're just kicking the can down the road. The VPN provider has all the same kinds of access. So you want to make sure you choose a VPN that protects you, respects you, doesn't inject advertising, doesn't snoop on what you're doing, and that's ExpressVPN. Time to stop hackers, time to stop Big Brother and internet companies from grabbing your data, time to take back your online security and privacy. Best part is less than $7 a month, and it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. Go right now to expressvpn.com/MacBreak. You can sign up for a year, and we'll throw in an extra 3 months free. That's the best deal of all. expressvpn.com/MacBreak. 3 months free with a 1-year package. EXPRESS, just like it sounds. expressvpn.com/MacBreak. We thank ExpressVPN for their support of MacBreak Weekly. People have been complaining for some time about swelling batteries in the Apple Watch and cracked screens. I remember reading a story from somebody who said the screen just popped off. I didn't knock it or anything, and Apple wouldn't replace it. Well, now they will. Apple said the screens on some watch models may crack, and they are offering free fixes now. They say under very rare circumstances, a crack may form along the rounded edge of the screen in the aluminum models of an Apple Watch Series 2 or 3, and they have a screen replacement program for this. So
that's great.
Yeah.
It happened to my mom's, and they popped off. It didn't crack. It popped off because of the battery, and they just replaced it right away. They didn't give her any static at all.
Yeah, good.
So it's great that it's a formal policy.
Yeah, I had the same thing happen with my AirPods when the case kind of split open, and it wasn't until like after they were rushed to give me my free replacement pair, they realized that must have been that battery swelling. So it's you'd rather these devices not have these problems, but when they take them seriously and realize that this was not the experience that we promised our customers, we're going to have to just simply eat it and make sure that we make it right for these people. That's the reason why you put your faith and your money in Apple.
Right. Good news. So if you have any problems, bring it in. New FAQ, and you pointed this out on imore.com on Apple's page about Siri privacy and a response to the Guardian article about humans grading Siri. It's an apology from Apple, which is kind of amazing.
They did almost everything that I was asking for. I think all of us were asking for, especially like no contractors. Now it's going to be Apple employees. It's opt-in instead of opt-out. It's really like they went through and checked all the boxes.
It's almost like they read John Gruber's piece and they said, "Okay, we'll do everything you say."
I do feel bad for the contractors. Like I hope those people will be onboarded somehow. I mean, contracting in tech is horrible, like I've said before, but that's a lot of people who had work yesterday that don't have work today, and I hope they're taken care of somehow.
That was 300, 400 people in Ireland?
Yeah.
So the deal now is it'll be opt-in. In other words, it's not on by default, right?
Yes.
So I wonder how
I think made Ben Thompson a little upset because he thinks that Apple's already behind on the data collection.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Are they? Greg Farrow on Twit this Sunday said, no, that's just marketing, Google marketing. Apple's not that far behind. But I think anybody who's used Siri feels like Siri is probably not quite as smart as Google's assistant. Is that the case?
I would say that. I would make that.
It's definitely not as consistent.
His point is once you get the data, you don't need an infinite amount of data to make your artificial intelligence products better. You need a set of data. And once you've got that set, you've done the training.
I see people on Twitter saying they got an answer and then I can't get it, or I get an answer and they can't get it. And we should all be getting the answer. That's like my biggest long.
That seems like that's a server issue, right? There's different servers.
It feels like Eddie has one old server in his closet that he just never turned off. And 1 out of 100 times we all hit it every day. It's just, that's what it feels like.
Because, they said, we're not going to give you that, here's what I found on the web for you as much anymore.
Yeah.
That will make me feel better.
But I was getting it on one phone and not the other. It's the same thing. Like I understand A/B testing, I understand server farms, CDNs, all that stuff. But if I ask, humans need consistency, or we fall down on the floor and start crying. Just give us a little bit of consistency.
Yeah,
right.
It is important that services like this listen to false activations. That's the thing that people, privacy-wise, are most concerned about. That Siri thinks you said, "Hey, Shlomo," but in fact, you didn't, and maybe it's going to catch a recording of you in an unguarded moment. And that's what worries people, and that's really what the contractors were doing. they were reviewing the false requests. That was important. Apple says, before we suspended grading, our process involved reviewing a small sample of audio from Siri requests, less than 0.2%, and their computer-generated transcripts to measure how well Siri is responding and improve its reliability. For example, did the user intend to wake Siri? Did Siri hear the request accurately? Did Siri respond appropriately? By grading across a small sample of Siri requests over time, Apple can make big improvements. I'm going to guess Apple's going to make a case when you first set up your phone or your HomePod. It's going to make a case. It would be really good for us if you would allow us to occasionally see this stuff. And I wonder how many people will opt in.
Yeah, I would love Apple, there to be a button, just a simple button. I think
there's a mute button on Google's devices and Amazon's devices. Is that what you want?
Exactly. So that would So that would allow us. It would have, obviously, just because none of our devices have that physical button, but a digital version of that button that's on Control Center or something like that. Where if you just I don't want to have Siri listening right now, so I'm just going to tap this, and then you can even maybe set it to automatically turn back on after an hour, so that you can go into your meetings or something like that and feel secure that it's not going to accidentally activate while you're in some very important, very private moment or a situation that you just absolutely don't want anyone listening in, and then you can tap that button, or maybe even just automatically have it turn back on for you, so that under certain circumstances, you can ensure that it's not being listened, that your conversations aren't being listened to. But then most of the other time, you don't mind if it accidentally hears you, trying to figure out how to get down the street, or, if a show that you're watching on TV triggers it on your HomePod or something like that.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be interesting if when you first set up a new device, it just presents you with three choices. Choose one of these three. Siri, Shlomo can either not remember anything about you and give you only pretty much basic generic help, or B, Siri can learn stuff about you, and we'll treat this whatever data it collects, treat it very securely and treat it on device and never share it with Apple, and we'll give you much better answers. Or three, if Siri gets confused, Siri can actually send that recording to Apple servers, where a secure, trusted group of people will look at it and try to fix the problem, which will make Siri smarter in the long run and everybody smarter. And just choose between those three. And I think that most people would choose to be the mama bear, this choice in the middle. Some people would probably say, no, my privacy is everything, and then they'll definitely switch it back up to, yes, please learn stuff about me because this is terrible. All I can do is basic math with Siri right now. And I think that if Apple just simply says, here's how a voice assistant works, and the only way that we can really make this work better and make it evolve so that it's twice as good next year as it was now, is to occasionally let other people find out where Siri is doing right and where Siri is doing wrong. You can opt out of this, but if you would like to do that, it would really be doing us a solid. Thank you very much.
It's kind of weird that we're kind of put in this position of, do you want to be a good Samaritan and let us? And Apple already does this with send information to developers. Can we? Yeah. And it's the funny thing is that Microsoft already does do this. If you set up Windows, there's a fairly elaborate set of privacy controls, many choices that you have to make, and then there's at the bottom
they got in trouble with telemetry, I think, and
they got in trouble with that.
Got in trouble in the past, have set up beautiful systems for not getting in trouble in the future.
But it's my guess it's going to put Apple at a disadvantage, that most people will say no. I think most people now are at the point where they say, no, I don't want these things listening to me.
Well, I think if they could combine Andy and Lori's ideas and have something that says, this is always going to be listening to you, but you hear whenever you're in do not disturb mode, you can turn it off. I would totally do that. I don't want it.
I bet you would leave it always in do not disturb mode.
I would turn it off when I go to bed.
I think what would happen is you turn it on when you want to make a request. What would end up happening is you'd have it where right now when you press the sleep wake button and hold it, Siri wakes up. You just put it in that mode all the time. And that, I think, is not going to be a satisfactory solution.
But some people, I think enough people would leave it on all the time that they would get better data. I would be one.
There's some people that I think
that
would.
The good
there's some people that I
Samaritans.
think would actually use it more often if they had an easy option to mute.
Yep.
Well, that's the risk, right? That people don't buy any of this stuff because they don't want it listening. I think there's lots of people who don't have Amazon Echoes in the house.
A lot of it is information and control. I think are the two ways you solve almost any problem you have with the customers of your technology product. And so, if you give them the information and tell them that no, as a matter of fact, not only is this microphone not on, not only is this device not recording everything you say all the time. Here is why we couldn't even manufacture that if we had to. We can't have this device constantly connected to the internet, constantly sending streams of data up to Apple. We sell way too many of these to even be able to process all that stuff. We actually have just this one little chip that's all it does. It's a low-power chip that can only recognize one phrase, and when it hears that phrase, it will nudge the CPU to wake up and start listening to what comes next. Tell people how that works, and then, like Lori says, give them the control to say that if I want to just automatically say, make sure that the microphone is off from 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. every single day, you can have that level of control. Or even if we still have those, imagine if that tracker device, the tracker Apple chip, is actually has a little touchpad on it, so you can actually wear it like a communicator, where it doesn't actually have a microphone in it, but the fact that you've tapped it means that okay, the device within range is now going to turn its microphone on in a way to command. I'd sign up for that. That would be such an easy thing. Yes.
I also want a button on that tile thing that turns location.
Turns the tile off.
Turns the set. Yes.
So what's going to happen, because all this is so damn complicated, is a death spiral for Siri, if you ask me.
Well, the death spiral for Siri is that it doesn't dazzle people, not like the Google Assistant does. The Google Assistant
people turn it off, forget that they had it on ever, stop using it, and it's over. You're no longer collecting information. People already stop using Siri. How often do you use Siri?
All the time.
Not very often.
And there's the two people.
But it's Assistant Zero, so every.
Smart lights and stuff like that. Yeah. In fact, we saw Renee. He muted his microphone and he used Siri to turn off the light behind him right before the show began. So
my thing with Siri is that they have John Gianandrea there, and he's rebuilt the entire team, and that was just a few months ago. So it's going to take a while for that to pay off. But it's almost like being input zero on a television. It is Assistant Zero, and anytime you update an iPhone, like you update iOS or you buy a new iPhone, Apple has the chance to re-wow you, like to show off some amazing feature to get you back in. So people might be turning it off. They might be ignoring it. It might have a huge downward trend. But they have those moments, those moments every year where they can try and hook you back in. They just really, really have to seize one of those moments.
Well, there's bad news and there's good news. We talked bad news last week. We said many airlines are now preventing you from bringing your MacBooks in luggage because of a small number of 2012 to 2015 MacBooks having problems with the batteries. But the good news is you can bring your thermal detonator Coke bottles on board again.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. If you go to Disney's attraction, the Galaxy's Edge Star Wars attraction, apparently Coca-Cola is selling soda in bottles that look just like thermal detonators, and the TSA was banning those. Then somebody said, no, it's
Wonka.
Soda.
Jabba no Wonka, Leo. No, but not Jedi.
The grenade-shaped collectibles were on the no-fly list last month, but the TSA, it says, the issue concerning Star Wars Galaxy Edge-themed soda bottles has recently been brought to our attention by the general public. We've completed our review and instructed officers to treat these as an oversized liquid. They should be put in checked baggage. Oh, great. Or emptied to be brought as a carry-on item. I don't know. I can understand why the TSA did not want to see that on the X-ray of your checked luggage.
Yeah, that's.
You know what I'm saying?
Hunter, what else
we all have weird shaped things that we put in our our luggage, and they just pull it out and check it. So
yeah, but checked luggage, they have to go and get it and open it.
It's microphones every time for me. Microphones.
Every microphone, huh?
Yeah.
So has the price gone up on Apple Watches, AirPods, HomePods? The tariff went in effect on Sunday. I guess Apple's probably not going to immediately jump and raise the prices, but
I think most analysts are saying that for the time being, Apple will basically eat the cost of the tariffs. The tariffs don't apply to phones, don't apply to laptops yet. That won't be until December. But for the time being, they're willing to eat it. Partly, I think, because there's Tim has yet to get the knife in the back from Trump yet. And while his suit jacket remains un-Trump knifed, he has the ear of the president and the ability to actually affect policy to whatever degree that can be affected. So it just goes to show you the real problem with these tariffs. Yeah, exactly.
But
the real problem of all this is just the uncertainty of it. Not the tariffs exist, but they don't know exactly how long is this going to last. Is he going to change his mind at any point? It's just terrible. It's affecting the entire electronics industry.
Yeah, 15%.
Like he's being stabbed, but it's not super deep yet. It's just
it's just death by 1,000 pokes.
Yeah.
AirPods, Apple Watch, headphones, some iMacs, HomePod, and other products will have a 15% tariff. Apple's margin is more than 15% on these, but still, I mean, it's probably cutting the margin by half.
It varies by product, and services distort it because services are almost all profit. Mm-hmm. Their margins on hardware are nowhere nearly what they were in 2012.
Right. What would you say they are? I mean, is it 50%, 30%, 20%?
No, probably in the 20s. It was as high as 35, 45, I think in the 2012 era, but it's gone significantly
down. Well, then a 15% tariff is a significant. That's a significant cut if you have a 20% margin.
Or I think it's probably in the 30s now, but still, that's a large. And there's some talk that maybe they'll try and get the manufacturers like Foxconn to eat some of it or to share it with them. But I mean, it's the same thing as having multiple middlemen in an app store purchase. There's just no money to go around. Like, it's not like they're inventing new money to put it. And we don't have the money either.
And Apple's in a particularly precarious situation because what for years was their biggest advantage over other manufacturers, the fact that they essentially have got Apple manufacturing facilities in China. Yes, they subcontract out, but they've got these facilities locked in, and they thought that under previous presidents, both Republican and Democratic, they thought that, well, there's nothing could possibly ruin the economic relationship between China and America to the extent that this is going to come back to bite us. But now this has come back to bite them, and they don't have because they're not manufacturing key components any place else. They really have to solve this problem or find a way to weather the storm for 2 or 3 years until they can get manufacturing outside, or until they're very, very sure that whatever government that's still in place, if the United States of America is still around in a couple of years, is going to solve this problem and realize that it's really, really drawing blood across several sectors, that they can't let this last.
And unlike Pixel, it's not in small enough quantities where you can just move it to that Nokia factory.
Apple is rumored to be building factories in Vietnam and other non-Chinese locales, but this is
I think just for U.S. demand, which is
that's a hard thing to do.
And meanwhile, say their biggest competitor for phones is Samsung, and again, they are the company that manufactures everything. They're based in South Korea. They are okay. They have some manufacturing in China as well, but basically, as far as I understand, just here and there to take on some overhead that they can't do in South Korea. So this could be a huge, huge problem for Apple if this situation does not mend itself.
Well, of course, and this is what Tim Cook flew to Bedminster, New Jersey to explain to the president last week. The president said, "Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think of that." But the tariff still went into effect. So the next shoe drops, as you said, Andy, December 15th. Then it will affect all of the Apple stuff. They deferred it for the holiday shopping season.
Yeah. So this was such an important because
essentially an acknowledgement
that it's being attacked so severely that let's wait a couple of months to.
Well, it is, and it's an acknowledgement that
this is meaningless and useful.
We're under attack by Zambonis. They're coming at us very slowly, but they're coming.
Hey, Canadian, you watch. You're next.
I've got the magic bottle cap that scares away the Zambonis and keeps us safe.
Pretty soon there'll be a 15% tariff on having Renee Ritchie on the show.
But most of Canada's foreign policy over the last few years has been to be stable as part of an allied stance, in dealing with and that has all gone with. We've been hit left and right because we have no idea what's going on anymore.
Yeah.
Poutine tariffs are coming.
Here come the poutine tariffs.
Don't you touch our poutine. The War of 1812, sir.
They could announce poutine tariffs. I don't think anybody'd say anything. It'd just be
so delicious. Yeah.
We'll miss that poutine, I guess.
Sorry about the poutine.
Poutine makes tourists easier to spot. I think that's the reason why Canadians like poutine.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to watch what happens over the next few months.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yes, interesting. It's going to be an interesting development.
This isn't. I just can't let this go without saying that every time I talk to people who are in charge of operations at big companies, they all tell me that what the biggest problem is that they don't know what the state of the world now is going to be in 1 year's time, let alone 5 years' time. And things that they thought were going to be gospel truth that they made all these plans on and invested so much time and people and money in could just simply be wiped off the books. This could be a huge disaster. Sorry, I'm preparing for Friday's NPR thing, which means I've been spending the last 5 days reading about the economic impact of the tariff. So I'm sorry, I'm spouting up at the mouth. This is great, wonderful. So I'm tired of all
everything's
the
fine.
Tired of all the
everything's fine.
According to Variety, Apple has scrapped another show. They scrapped Dr. Dre's show Vital Signs some time ago. Now they've apparently scrapped the Richard Gere drama Bastards. Not moving forward at Apple. I'm thinking the name was part of the problem. Gere was set to star with Howard Gordon and Walter Lee to serve as showrunners and write the show. It was about two elderly Vietnam vets, best friends who find their lives upended when a woman they both loved 50 years ago is killed by a car. I don't think I'm going to miss that show, but yeah, I don't know. And part of making new content is saying no.
Deciding what not to make.
Deciding not what to. Steve Jobs always said that saying no is more important than saying yes, and that works for shows too. If you see the pilot,
the side of the set that nobody is going to see on television. Yeah. That's what you have to do.
Yeah, put the dark side of the TV.
Yes.
Apple Pay at 9% adoption, which is pretty slow compared to Venmo and the other competitors. This comes from Bain Capital. 80% of Chinese consumers use some form of smartphone payment. The U.S. adoption rate is only 10%.
Apple Pay not in China.
Apple Pay is the most used.
It has it locked up. So
actually, Apple Pay is apparently used in China. 17% adoption.
Cash part, sorry, the cash part is still U.S. only.
Yeah. This is in the U.S. It's also a kind of a laggard. PayPal is used by 44% of American consumers. I should point out PayPal owns Venmo, which is probably what is consuming the bulk of that. Credit card and cash, 80% and 79%. I wonder if the Apple Card's going to change that. I find myself using Apple Pay a lot more because I want to see what color it'll turn the card.
I think one of the biggest problems with mobile payments in the United States has been the cost prohibitive nature of changing over to a new terminal system that supports it. And it hasn't been a federal requirement to have the chip and pin card in the US up until very recently. And so they're just now starting to switch over to terminals that support that sort of thing. And I think that has a lot to do with why the US hasn't switched over to this sort of complete acceptance of mobile payment like other countries have.
There's another reason, according to Bain. People like rewards. So something like the Starbucks card is heavily used, 23.4 million people, because of the free coffee you get and other credit cards. So I think this kind of explains why Apple Card was very important to Apple, because it's those reward it says consumers are unlikely to stray from the rewards that have become part and parcel of the credit card experience.
But you could connect any credit card to Apple Pay and use that. So people
but why bother?
I
could just you'd have to really want to use Apple Pay to do that. I could just use the credit card.
Right, but my argument is that if people weren't using mobile payment systems just because they wanted the rewards from their credit card, well, that's not really true, because you can just attach your credit card to your mobile payment system like Apple Pay.
Yeah, but that's an extra step that nobody's going to do. You got to remember, people don't do stuff.
Or one fewer step.
Once you've done it. But I mean,
once you've done it.
I honestly think people just go, no, I'll use a credit card. I don't think they think that, oh, well, I could pay off the Apple Pay with a credit card and I could get the rewards. I don't think they think that. I don't think that's how people work.
I think it's just a matter of not being ready for it yet, not being familiarized with the way mobile payment works with these terminals at stores and things like that. And I think, I hear what you're saying, definitely, that it's easy. Well, I'll just whip out my credit card that I always use, my physical credit card, and I'll stick it into the machine. I still
do that all the time.
Right. And
I was at the gas station the other day and it had Apple Pay. I thought, oh, that's cool. And I was going like this with my watch. Nothing happened. So what did I do? I pulled out my credit card.
Which is another problem that Apple Pay for a long time it still doesn't work that well on watch, but it hadn't worked as smoothly. It does now. It's much, much better. Because I would argue, Leo, that I pull my phone out and touch 2 buttons and I'm done. And that's with any credit card or my bank card. Apple Pay works that well when I use terminals that support it. To me, that's easier than whipping out the credit card. But not everybody knows that. And I think that's part of the process that we just haven't familiarized ourselves with in the United States as much as some other countries, especially China, has familiarized themselves with the mobile pay way of kind of using your device to make the payment instead of your card to use the payment.
Right.
Yeah, and let's not ignore the fact that the banks aren't doing their job, because they can't. They apparently haven't figured out how contactless payments will save the banks and those institutions money. Remember when my bank network started being able to accept check deposits through the ATM, they hired people to stand near the ATMs and explain to people how it works. That's how much money that they are saved. Yeah, they're incentivized, because the fewer people they have to hire to work inside those branches and the fewer branches they have to keep open, the better for them. So they're incentivized to get everybody to learn how to use this wonderful new technique. And then next to, now just take a picture of the check with your phone, which I love. But again, it's something that you have to explore your phone app to know that you have to be able to do. But they are interested in putting up that alert to tell you to do that, because it saves the money. Once they figure out that Apple Pay or Google Pay or any other sort of electronic payment service is going to save the money, that's when you're going to get this new pop-up video in your banking app that says, hey, why pay with cash? Why not just Baybank it or blanket to somebody? You really have to put a lot of this liability at the feet of the banks that don't do all these cool things that are eminently possible, but they don't find themselves in a position where it's going to benefit them personally, so they don't really care about it.
We're engaged users, and I think we overestimate how much how much normal people care about this stuff and are willing to take one step off their beaten path.
It's funny, though, because when this stuff first came out, tap to pay has been ubiquitous in Canada for over a decade. And when I first started using my watch to pay, I got really funny looks. What is that? Well, how did you do that? And then within about 6 months, I would go to these places and the cashiers were all wearing Apple Watches, and they'd hold them up to me and go, ha ha. So it does change. It's just, I think the U.S. is in a unique position where, sort of like mobile first, you guys had copper wires, and then other continents went straight to mobile, or we had mainframes and other markets went straight to mobile or to laptops. America has had such an traditional banking system that it's not natural for people to do that. And the whole hurdle to advanced modern payment mechanics, I think, is slowing down the digitization of it as well.
Yeah.
Because ours was instant.
There is a change coming to Catalina, more important than dark mode. Apple is going to stop. For a long time, one of the things I used to say was so great about macOS is it came with Python, Ruby, and Perl built in. 3 big scripting languages that any programmer knows. The problem, of course, was that Apple never had up-to-date versions of any of those languages. So if you cared about it and used them, you'd always install new versions of them anyway. Apple has announced that they are going to deprecate the runtimes for Python, Ruby, and Perl in future Mac OSs.
This is very similar to what they've been doing with the Mac OS server stuff in the development environments, where they originally, they were not really keeping up. They'd provide everything, but it was a version behind, and it was fine for people who didn't want to go to the repos and do the work themselves, but super annoying for the people who did because it was extra stuff. And I think they've just decided that if you are that keen on these things, you are going to go to the repos and get it directly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Curtis Wilcox, writing for Tidbits, points out that, first of all, it will be post-Catalina, not Catalina, but points out that Apple has at times deprecated long-standing components without removing them entirely. Apple put Launch D in Tiger, deprecating cron, but cron 10 Mac OS versions later is still humming along. So doesn't necessarily mean these are going to disappear. It's not so much that people who use them. Yeah, it's everybody. If you're a programmer, you're using Homebrew or Apple ports or something, Mac ports or something, and you're in. I mean, the first thing I do is update all three because I don't want ancient versions of any of those on there. But maybe users who rely on maybe users who rely on scripts who aren't programmers might be affected. I think this is just a warning shot. I don't think it's going to make too big of a deal, but I'll mention it. You can actually, and Wilcox has a really nice one-liner that you can paste in to Terminal to see if you have any applications that use scripts in Perl, Python, or Ruby to know if this is going to impact you. And if it is, some of the things you can do. He also points out Swift can be used as a scripting language. There is no Swift runtime with Mac OS, but perhaps that's where we're headed, is replace those three with a Swift runtime. And I think that'd be a very interesting thing. A lot of apps.
Has Gruber rewritten Markdown in Swift yet?
Oh, that's what we need. Come on, John, get to work. I think John is no longer the steward of Markdown. He invented it, but Gruber doesn't. There are libraries of, and there's all sorts of different.
He has the canonical initial implementation.
Exactly. That's all that matters. But there are some pretty hefty, interesting Markdown variants out there. I have a note-taking app I use called Joplin that uses GitHub's flavor of Markdown, which I like a lot. Yeah. And then there are additional plugins you can use that really give it all sorts of wild features.
iMore's editor is multi-Markdown, but I forget the exact flavor.
I really like Markdown. The more I use it, the more I like it. I didn't see the value when it was just easy way to do bold and big text and italic. But now that because of GitHub, I can put code in my Markdown, and it's blocked out as a code block, and it even does syntax coloring, and that's really awesome. So there's some nice reasons to use it. So all of your articles are submitted in Markdown?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's so much cleaner than when people were pasting it in from like Word's HTML generator and some of the rich text editors and stuff, and you'd never know what was causing the error in the 300 span blocks they inserted in every sentence.
Yeah. Worth learning Markdown. It's easy to learn.
It is.
Yeah. All right, let's take a little break and have some more news in just a bit. Our picks are still coming up as well. Our show today brought to you by ZipRecruiter. We just hired somebody using ZipRecruiter, I think, our new production assistant. ZipRecruiter solves all the challenges of hiring. Hiring's hard. Hiring's important. Your company is made of the people you hire. But it's challenging to find that right person. Let's assume you've got an opening and somewhere out there in the world the perfect person's waiting, looking for a job, looking for your job. But how do you reach them? Well, ZipRecruiter starts by posting to more than 100 job sites. That's fantastic because you're casting the widest net, and that includes Twitter and Facebook. But then it does something really amazing. It has this great interface. See, one of the problems is you may not want to post to 100 job sites because then you got to check 100 job sites, or you're going to get phone calls and your email box is going to get jammed. Not with ZipRecruiter. They post to the sites, all of the resumes, all of the applications roll into the ZipRecruiter interface, not your inbox, not your phone. They pre-format the resumes so it's easy to scan them. You can also have screening questions to eliminate candidates that just aren't right for the job. Multiple choice, yes, no, even essay questions. And then with ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology, once they know about your opening, they scan thousands of resumes they have on file to find people with the right experience, and they invite them to apply to your job. As the applicants come in, ZipRecruiter analyzes each one, spotlights the top candidates so you know exactly where to start. In fact, it's so good, and this has been our experience, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. It's why we use it, because often within an hour or two, we'll have 3 or 4 great applicants right away. MacBreak Weekly listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free right now, but you've got to go to ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. We're big fans. We use it all the time. Just hired a production assistant through ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter.com/MacBreak. ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Apple, let's see. Apple. Well, maybe we can mention some Google Apple. Google Project Zero on Thursday. God. Okay, I want to hear what you say about this. Okay. So the Project Zero is a very important security research facility at Google. Their goal is to eliminate 0 days. Ian Beer on Project Zero writing at the Google blog, iOS exploit chains found in the wild. Earlier this year, and this was back in February, they're writing about it now because it's all been patched. Google's threat analysis group discovered a small collection of hacked websites doing something they called indiscriminate watering hole attacks against their visitors, using a series of iPhone 0 days. Now, normally with the iPhone, the 0 days are used in a targeted fashion. Governments collect them, use them to go after particular dissidents or spies or whatever. In this case, they said there was no target discrimination. Simply visiting the hacked site was enough for the exploit server to attack your device. If it was successful, install a monitoring implant. We estimate these sites receive thousands of visitors a week. Further analysis from TechCrunch made it sound like these sites were somewhat targeted towards Uyghur Muslims in China. And that would make sense because it would have been a state actor, China, trying, and they've done this in other ways in the past, trying to track Muslim dissidents in China, the Uyghurs. And that would kind of confirm sort of what this is. The thing is, it's an interesting series of exploits. 14 vulnerabilities across 5 exploit chains, 7 for Safari, 5 for the kernel, and 2 separate sandbox escapes, affecting all iPhones from iOS 10 to iOS 12. Now, they did report this to Apple on February 1st. They gave them an unusually short deadline, a 7-day deadline, but you may remember an out-of-band update, 12.1.4, which came out 1 week later. That's what that was all about. They shared complete details with Apple. So this is a series of posts detailing the 5 privilege escalation exploit chains. A pretty serious attack.
Yep.
Now, you said, oh, God. Why did you say, oh, God?
So there's an issue with this, and that is now I don't buy into this personally, but there is a school of thought that Google uses Project Zero as a way to sort of diminish the reputations of competing operating systems, primarily Windows, also iOS. And I just think that they're a bunch of nerds, and they found this was incredibly exciting. But when people started reporting on this, they started reporting like 1 billion iPhone owners have a reason to ditch iPhones, right, or massive iPhone. And what Google Project Zero did not do was provide any context with this initial report.
Yeah, they didn't say which sites had this exploit. These exploits.
No, well, 2 things. They didn't say, like, they said it was indiscriminate watering hole, but being in Xinjiang for a Muslim community is not being on like YouTube or being on Amazon. And people were panicked. My mom called me, and that's my barometer for mainstream panic. When my mom sees it on BBC or something and calls me because she thinks her iPhone has been hacked, that to me is a big deal. And the other thing they didn't do was say that the attack also affected Windows and it also affected Android. We've had subsequent reports. I forget which site did the report on Sunday, but there was a really good deep dive. And way up on their list was a binary attack against Android and a specific OAuth attack against Google Apps. And Project Zero didn't mention any of that. And for me, it's problematic because Project Zero is owned by Google. So they have to go out of their way to make sure that there's no sort of impropriety about the way that they do disclosures. And I'm not saying they have to blog all this stuff because their time is limited, but when they do blog it and when it has provocative headlines, I feel like it's super simple in the introduction to say a watering hole attack in a small market in, they don't have to say China, in some part of the world that affected Windows and Android and iOS users. And oh, by the way, we think the iOS part was particularly interesting, so we're going to blog about that. And then the million of people who reblog it can't just say, oh, iPhone attack, go burn all your devices, we're all doomed now. They would say, like, as part of a large attack against this population, here's the iOS part of it. So I think it was I think it was bad for Project Zero, and it was definitely bad. I did a video insofar as to call it an attack on iPhone users, but that they cannot continue to operate this way unless they become independent from Google.
That's a very good point. It was somewhere in between a targeted attack on a dissident and a mass attack on all iPhone users. It was kind of a targeted mass attack.
You had to be you'd have to be someone who would go to those websites.
Well, it could have been you and me if we would go to a website that was popular with Uyghur Muslims. It's not that we wouldn't be attacked.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's a very niche compared to the way it was reported initially by the companies that.
It shouldn't have scared your mom. It shouldn't have scared your mom. But it is, and by the way, The Wire, I think one of the headlines you probably didn't like was the Wired headline from Andy Greenberg and Lily Hay Newman, who are usually very good writers on security. Mysterious iOS attack changes everything we know about iPhone hacking. For 2 years,
a bunch of InfoSec nerds, and they were like immediately, this took 14 vulnerabilities across 4 exploit chains. That is an incredible amount of work to get into this. That's not, it changes everything. That's, wow, did these people really want to get in?
Yeah. And by the way, these are expensive attacks. Often these vulnerabilities cost a lot of money to get from
up to $3 million for a 0 day.
Yeah. So it has to be a nation state that is strongly incented. And yes, it could be a mass attack in a targeted fashion if it's targeted against a subgroup, like Uyghur Muslims that the state doesn't like. There are plenty. It was
an amazing attack. Nothing against the attack part. It's just it scared. Apple is not the most popular operating system, but boy, are they the most popular headline.
Right. Yeah. So I did not know, and I never saw this, that your contention that these attacks also affected Windows users and Android users.
Yeah, it was a follow-up to TechCrunch. It was reported by Forbes. I keep saying this, not the terrible Forbes contributor network, but actual Forbes, which does good security work. They reported it, and then Vexalion did a deep dive report that came out yesterday that had a whole list of them, and there was several major attacks against Google included in that were nowhere to be found on Project Zero.
That is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with what Renee was just saying. The only subscript that I might add is that it is important to make sure that we point out when there's a vulnerability or a proven attack on Apple hardware, since Apple still tries to make a little bit of hay by saying that, hey, we are the most private, we are the most secure. Excuse me, we are more private, we are more secure than our competitors. I just don't want people to think that, hey, I'm absolutely protected because I've got an iPhone. It means that you're less likely to be targeted. It means that if you are targeted, that attack is less likely to go through. But that said, that is just a parenthetical to my agreement with what Renee is saying. Google's work is really important. It's they're doing the Lord's work in some way, shape, or form. That doesn't mean that you can't have these. You can't find a political edge to finding and to the way that you announce that you found a really interesting vulnerability.
Yeah. Sophos Naked Security Blog says that, it looks like it's not merely Apple. So interesting. All right.
Yeah. And again, just add that in the introduction sentence, and that way it shapes the entire narrative for all of the coverage that follows.
Yeah, it's very different. Yeah.
And it's also because it becomes like a crying wolf thing. And we've seen a lot of these headlines, iOS security finally defeated. And it turns out that, yes, if you jailbreak your phone, you're in China and you download cracked apps from this specific Chinese app store, they're totally getting into your phone. But that doesn't correlate to the headline. And one day there may be a really dangerous vulnerability, and we need to not have been dead into it by a bunch of really sensational headlines.
Yeah, but that is endemic. That is a sensational headline, no matter what the platform is. And that's not it's not unique to Apple. Oftentimes you'll find another headline saying, study found that over 80% of all Android apps are infected with malware, saying, okay, if you include everything that all the side-loaded available apps and all the alternative app stores that are not protected but not overseen by Google, if you only include the places where people are likely to get Android apps from, that is down to can't remember what the last number was, but it was a single digit or less. I'm sorry, less than a single digit.
I do have to point out that this is from Thomas Brewster at Forbes. He quotes sources who said, speaking on the condition of anonymity, that Google and Windows were also targeted. But I haven't seen any other subsequent confirmation or analysis of that.
In the show notes.
Did you? I mean, I've seen. So. Okay.
Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry, that's a YouTube redirect. It's Valexian that did the deep dive.
Valexian. Okay. So let me look at that.
Velexity.
All right.
But again, I absolutely do not want to downplay what Renee has said, because I agree 100% with what he's saying.
Yeah.
I think one of the maybe problems or reasons why we might see a little bit more headliney stuff when it comes to things like privacy and security, though, is in a way Apple's fault for being so private and secure and making all these statements. They stand on their soapbox of how private and secure we are. So there are going to be people who are going to, it's their goal to knock them down a peg. And that always happens whenever somebody sort of can stand, and make a bold statement and stand behind their statement. There's going to be people who are going to put that down. Like, to use a weird analogy, but you'll get what I mean by that. A vegan might just say, I'm healthier because I'm vegan. I don't eat meat, and I don't support eating animals. But then if they're wearing, or maybe there's a picture of them wearing a belt from 10 years ago or something like that made of leather, then all these people will say, oh, you're not really a vegan, look at you. Or even something so simple as, yeah, but you're so sickly because you don't eat any kind of protein. It's a similar idea of when somebody's kind of saying something or doing something that you feel somehow attacked by or something like that, you want to knock them down a peg. And I think that's part of why we get so many major headlines that are just really off the mark, but are attacking Apple when it comes to privacy and security stuff.
Yeah, if I can just add one thing, Lori, you're still kind of new as a member of the panel, so I'll let this go. But weird analogies are really kind of my shtick. So
can you put a top hat in there somewhere, Lori?
It just takes some of the air out of my balloon. That's all I'm saying. You do you. You do you. I'm just saying.
No, I think all of that is true. I just think because Google owns Project Zero, they need to go out of their way to make sure.
Okay, I want to make sure we're fair on this. We had reported on an earlier attack against the same Uyghur diaspora using an app that was put on people's phones when they came into the airport in that area of China. That's one of the things that this Velexity analysis is talking about. Mobile device users running Android OS targeted via an exploit that will deliver a 64-bit ARM executable. We have mentioned this previously. So I think these attacks are, what they're talking about is, and this is what Velexity does, by the way. They're not exactly a security firm. They focus on NGOs attacking activists and dissidents. Yeah. And so what they're talking about in this article is absolutely a widespread, wide-ranging series of attacks on Uyghur Muslims, including this Apple Zero Day. But these aren't necessarily all the same time or the same methodology. So Android mobile users were targeted in mid-August also on websites of the Uyghur Academy, Turkestan Press, Turkestan TV, loading code in an iframe.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying is provide that context, because then it gets reblogged accordingly.
Well, but I think the zero-day folks were talking about a specific zero-day. They weren't talking about a campaign by any government against any minority. The Volexity is talking about a widespread campaign, but not a specific flaw, is what I'm saying. And so I think it's hard. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think it's at all clear that the Google folks were trying to focus the attention on Apple again, away from Microsoft.
I don't think it was deliberate. I just think it was a really clever hack.
They were talking about a specific zero-day and a specific chain of attacks. Yeah, and so if you look at this Volexity post, it's true that Gmail has been targeted via OAuth and so forth. But that wouldn't have been in the scope of the zero-day post, to be frank. I mean, that's just a separate attack.
I can only say that my interpretation of what Renee was saying and why I agree with it so readily wasn't that it was Google security is doing anything operational, but more like they should be more aware of the responsibility they have to make sure that the trust that they have earned in the security community is partly because they are trying to help everybody who uses a computer everywhere on the internet, and that cause is not helped when they create a report through carelessness. I think this is just through carelessness, seem to underscore something that they find interesting about it. When an outsider
but I don't think it was carelessness. I don't think the scope of their report, they didn't even mention Uyghurs or any group. They were talking about an exploit chain, and that's all they were talking about. It's appropriate for Volexity, which has a political component, to say, yes, this exploit chain is part of a larger attempt to discriminate against Uyghurs. But honestly, Google didn't even mention that. That wasn't what that post was about.
No,
I don't
I
think
agree.
in any respect they were lax or inadvertently left out stuff they should have left in, because they didn't even bring up who this was a targeted attack against.
That was part of the problem, because you think it could be you at that point, rather than sending content. Like, even as a reader, I would be like, oh my God. But if they said it was used against a small population in this area or in websites, then I would go, oh.
Well, but they were clear that it was that they told Apple about it in February. They waited a long time. Yeah. They waited 8 months to reveal this. They said it was patched in February. It's no longer a threat. I don't think that was the intent of the blog post. I don't think that's what they were talking about.
Again, I agree.
And I don't want to impute in any way any malign intention on the part of Project Zero Day. I think that these guys have done great work. They have exposed flaws in other operating systems, including their own, many, many times.
Yeah, I don't think Renee was implying the same thing either. At least from my ears, I didn't hear that.
I want their reputation maintained by having that extra layer.
I would also say that it would be useful in terms of people having this in context to know that the Muslim populations in China are amongst the most technocratically abused groups of any country in the entire world. Some of them are, in some regions, they really are treated like. We know that the attitude of the government is that we know that you are terrorists. We know that you are planning to bomb and kill people. We just haven't caught you yet, but don't worry, we're going to get you soon. And there seem to be with all of the crackdowns they do and all the limitations they put on travel, on information,
and they have concentration camps where a lot of Muslims are imprisoned solely because they're Muslim.
Re-education camps, which are masked as job training centers. So that's it doesn't mean that this stream of events that would cause a security breach is not possible to do elsewhere. But it just goes to show you that when you have a government, a government which has incredible resources, and B, are incredibly motivated to attack a certain surface, that surface is good. 14 steps is not jump change to them.
That's the takeaway. Really is. Whether it's a targeted attack against a single dissident or a mass attack against a minority group, these kinds of attacks take huge resources. They take a nation state to perpetrate. Yeah. It doesn't mean you couldn't have accidentally been pulled in. If you're, a high school kid doing research on the Uyghurs, you might well have been attacked by it. So.
And it also doesn't mean that our own government couldn't be using the same things to keep eyes on people that they can't get a warrant on yet. Right. but they have the brief to say that, well, because this is a national security issue, we can actually do this, so we're going to do this and try to make sure that people don't know that this capability exists.
Consumer Reports says the Galaxy Buds are better than the AirPods.
Womp womp.
Pom pom. Wah, wah. They're also less expensive. They say they last longer. They sound better. I kind of agree with Consumer Reports. I use my Galaxy Buds all the time. I got them with my Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. They're much more comfortable. And they also don't drip out of your ear. So I don't completely disagree. There is a certain convenience factor to the AirPods that just can't be beat. Although if you're using a Samsung phone, it's interesting. The Galaxy Buds do exactly the same thing. You open up the case. It's a battery charging case. You open it up. The phone pops up a card saying, we're pairing these. So they clearly copied.
Consensus I've heard is that people like the design and the sound, but the raindrop, the droop down on the AirPods helps with the talking. If you were someone who still talks on your phone, which not everybody.
And also remember that we're comparing like the Samsung Buds came out, a year and a half, 2 years after AirPods. Yeah. So I really can't wait to see what Apple is going to follow up the original AirPods with beyond wireless charging, because remember that the first set of AirPods, it wasn't that, hey, look, they've got Bluetooth headphones. It's that it was the first truly wireless set of Bluetooth headphones that actually really worked, where you didn't have to have a plastic head in order to make sure that both of these are working correctly. So I can't wait to see what they will do with another couple of years worth of engineering in these things.
I do have to say that any buds that seal your ear better than the AirPods, which don't seal your ear, and that includes not only the Galaxy Buds, but the Jabra in-ear monitors, they all sound much better than Apple's AirPods, and you can wear them a lot. At least in my experience, I can wear them a lot longer. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Lori.
I was just commenting on Powerbeats Pro, and I know that's not AirPods, but there you go. Like
they're more comfortable too, aren't they?
Much better sound quality.
Yeah, because they seal, right?
Much more comfortable.
They have tips. Yeah. They have different tips. Yeah, that to me is a much better design. So many AirPods have been lost in the New York City subway tracks in recent months. The MTA is considering initiating a public service announcement urging computers to refrain from taking AirPods on or off while exiting or entering trains. This is from the Wall Street Journal.
That's how you know you have a breakthrough product, Leo.
By the way, this is an image that Ashley Mayer put a broom and duct tape together and was able to recover her AirPods and a little bit of other schmutz.
Would you really want them back at that point?
No.
Yeah.
She needs to have them.
Put them in an autoclave.
What they really should, what the MTA really should do is that, I think what's in the 34th Street Station complex, they've got these little tiny little bronze ball shaped gnomes here and there. They should, every time they find one, they just glue them into the ears of these little gnomes when you find them.
The Journal interviewed MTA maintenance supervisor Stephen Dluginski. Dluginski says that transit workers use a pole that extends to about 8 feet and has 2 rubber cups on the end that can be squeezed together to grab small objects. He called it the picker-upper thing. Around noon on a recent Thursday, Dluginski's team had received 18 requests to fetch lost items, a third of them for AirPods. Passenger. Go ahead.
Rats on the MTA, they deserve fidelity. They deserve the wireless convenience as much as any other commuter or user of the system. I think that.
And by the way, if you lose an AirPod, I did not know this, but thanks to Mac Rumors article, I now know Apple will replace a single AirPod for $69.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you
can get a single AirPod replacement.
Yeah. If you're missing, if you don't have a match set, you can get them for $69. How much titanium is actually in the titanium Apple Card? Mark Gurman digging deep to get the answers. He actually had an scanning electron microscope scan the card. They sent it to a mineralogist at UC Berkeley, Hans Rudolf Wenck, who used what's known as a scanning electron microscope to determine the card's atomic makeup. The answer? 90%. The rest of it's aluminum.
It must feel like a Joanna Stern video, though.
Titanium.
Like really,
it needs a Joanna Stern video. Yeah.
You have Lori taking on Andy's metaphors, and now Mark is doing Joanna's videos. It's a weird.
I think it's hysterical. They sent it to Berkeley for analysis. Thank you, Professor Wenck.
I'm just sorry that Ricky Jay passed away too early that we can't have him throwing apple cards into watermelons.
Man, you could too. I could tell you that apple card.
What about Bullseye from Electra? Me, baby, I'm magic.
Oh, he would see. He would be saying, give me a challenge, man. give me a wadded up piece of Kleenex.
Crime in Hell's Kitchen exploded when Bullseye got his hands on apple cards this week.
Are you
Bullseye
ready?
Versus Gambit apple cards at 50 paces.
Are you ready for USB 4? Here it comes, kids.
Hard no.
Hard no? It's based.
No, I guess I'm ready.
It's based on Thunderbolt, doubling the maximum bandwidth of USB, allowing for multiple simultaneous data and display protocols. 40 gigabit per second speed, backward compatible with USB 3.2 and Thunderbolt 3, dual lane operation. I'm guessing it's still the client server setup of regular USB. That's one difference. Thunderbolt is a direct memory access peer-to-peer connection.
And PCIe architecture.
Yeah. But hey, 40 gigabits is 40 gigabits. However,
as much as we love to rag on Lightning, can we just take a minute to how does a normal consumer even begin to approach this? Because you have the letters, which are the endpoints, but the endpoint also looks like Thunderbolt, which doesn't have to be there. And then the numbers indicate the capabilities.
And maybe it has video. Maybe you can charge.
Maybe it has video. Maybe.
Yeah.
So the USB 4 spec is complete, but it usually takes at least a year for new products to come out. So later in 2020 for your.
We color code them? Can we write on the label?
It's going to have the same exact opening. It's going to be the Type-C connector. So.
Is it going to be super expensive? Because that's where I think a lot of people are going to get confused as to whether or not, is this just USB-C? Can I just use it to charge? And then they see this really expensive USB cable and they think, well, isn't this just a charger? Why do I have to spend so much on it?
And is it thick enough? Is it shielded enough? Remember when HDR came out, everyone was super confused because they're like, no, an HDMI cable is just an HDMI cable. Why can't I get HDR? And then you're like, well, because it's not shielded and because it's not HDMI 1.4 and because it's all over again, Leo.
And I can't play copyrighted content because it's not a secure cable without the pinouts. Yeah. So that's.
God.
I just want to give a plug to Renee Ritchie, who will not stop playing Pokemon Go for nothing.
What did I do now?
He's got a new article, How to Catch Unknown in Pokemon Go. There's apparently 28 of them, and he's written an article on how to catch them. This is what Renee did for Labor Day.
Eggs right now, Leo.
For Labor Day, he had a grilled cheese sandwich, an iced tea, and captured unknown all day long. Good
Can't
for you.
Stop, won't stop. Renee is.
We have to get you back in the fold somehow.
I've stopped playing Harry Potter. I'm bored. I don't care anymore about Harry Potter.
I've got half of them now. But the problem with unknowns is the more you get, the harder it is to get one you don't have.
Aye. Well, isn't that the way it is in the world? 201 unknown.
But right now you can get Ultra because the event are out. So Ultra is in 10K eggs.
I have to tell. You see, Lisa's still playing. But I was the one who used to tell her about all this stuff so she could do it.
Yes.
So now she's cast adrift in the Pokemon universe. I've got to get her connected with you, Renee, so she can know about Unknown.
Do it. We'll get it done, Leo.
Let's take a break. Your picks next. But first, a word from my pick for the best Wi-Fi device out there, the Eero. This is an Eero beacon. Eero blankets your whole home with fast, reliable Wi-Fi, eliminating poor coverage and dead spots and buffering. Wi-Fi was not, when we first got Wi-Fi, we never contemplated this modern Wi-Fi world where we have dozens of devices, IoT devices and ovens and everything connected to the Wi-Fi, streaming video on 4 different screens, not to mention the fact that the neighbor's Wi-Fi is coming booming in. It's a Wi-Fi hostile world. So you need Eero. I love our Eeros. It sets up in just minutes, plugs right into your modem or modem router box. You can manage it from the Eero app. You could place them with the Eero app. It helps you put them in the right spot and check that the signal's good. You can also see what's going at any time. Check usage, pause the Wi-Fi for dinner, Or in the case of our son, for homework time, get alerts if any device attempts to join your network. I really like that because when people come over or whatever, it's say, oh, hey, here's a new device on your Eero. I have 32 connected devices on my Eero. I can see what my internet bandwidth is. And the thing is, I not only use Eero at home, but when we got the new Eeros, I gave the old Eeros to my mom so I can switch over to my mom's network and see how her devices are working. She's only got 6 connected devices. But that's always a great thing. They're all green, so no, they're lit up. Let me show you another thing I love about Eero, which is Eero Plus. They've just added a new feature, Eero Secure Plus. Look at this. Not only do I get some great features like a free copy of Malware Bytes and a password vault and encrypt me, but I also can see the network threats that have been blocked. There have been 2 threat blocks this week, 307 ad blocks, 14,000 scans. I love this. The safe filters for my family. I could say, oh, Michael gets no adult, illegal, or criminal content, no violent content. This is Eero Plus, and I'm a huge fan. Eero's getting better and better all the time. Your network will never again suffer from the Wi-Fi's down. I hate that. I get that yell at 10 p.m. every night, but that's from Michael. It's supposed to be down for him. It expands to fit your needs. It senses how you're using your Wi-Fi, and it adjusts automatically so you can stream, work, and play from every corner of your house. Why should you spend any effort thinking about Wi-Fi? Get yours fixed now. In fact, you can get it tomorrow when you go to Eero.com/MacBreak. If you use the offer code MacBreak at checkout, free overnight shipping. Your Eero will be here tomorrow. Your family will be thanking you at dinner. EERO.com/MacBreak. And then enter the offer code MacBreak at checkout to get your Eero delivered with free overnight shipping. I love these Eero beacons because, where'd I put it? Oh, here. Because so you put the Eero base station by your cable modem or your DSL modem, but these beacons you can put around the house. All they do is they plug into the wall, and they are, if you wish, a convenient nightlight too. So I put them in the halls, and that way the halls got a nightlight, and we've got Wi-Fi everywhere. God, I love these Eeros. And because I have outdoor cameras, I love having the Eero. I could place it close to the wall, so that the doorbell, the Ring doorbell, and the Nest cams and everything that's outside, they get good, strong Wi-Fi, which is really great. EERO.com/MacBreak. And don't forget the offer code MacBreak for not only do you get free overnight shipping, but you get the satisfaction of knowing you've helped the show by letting the Eero folks know you heard it here first. Eero.com/MacBreak. Thank you, Eero, for your support. Thank you for using that special URL and the offer code MacBreak at checkout. Andy and Akko. Pick something. I bought that flash you recommended. Pick something else like that. That was good. That was good stuff.
Yeah. Wait.
We have too much money, Andy. Please.
Help us spend it.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I picked a free thing this week. Or you can just put some money in a box and
Andy,
send it to
I'm going to be spending so much money next week. I'm just thrilled. Thank you. I've got thousands of dollars in iPhones and watches to buy next week.
Put it all on your Apple Card.
I will.
Yeah, put it all in your Apple Card.
I will.
Well, my pick is, believe it or not, the Wikipedia app for iOS. Because now I'm used to every time I need to search for something on Wikipedia, just opening up a browser tab.
Right.
And I don't know how I happened to accidentally wind up downloading the app to get it instead. But oh my God, it is one of the most wonderful apps I own. It's now an app that I use every single day because yes, it's there for you if you just want to search for something. How much tungsten did this country mine and ship in 1968? Okay, fine, I'll give you that. But it's the most beautiful information book you can ever get. When you start it up, it just will give you, here's a featured article for today. Here are some articles related to what day in history this is on this day. Here are random articles related to topics that are in the news. So we've got a hurricane coming. So here's not only information about Hurricane Dorian, but articles that are related to the areas that are going to be hit and to the concept of hurricanes. And not only that, but the ability to simply explore. You remember if you're old enough to have the People's Almanac Almanac or the Book of Lists. It's just this thick book full of really interesting articles that you would find yourself just sitting, in my case, just sitting in my parents' living room, like cross-legged at age 10, 11, just reading, because I just kept finding interesting things to read. And this is what the app enables and what it does. You can also very quickly simply preload up your phone with articles that you want to read, interesting stuff you want to read later. This morning, I loaded up an article on the biggest man-made explosions that have ever happened, that have nothing to do, non-nuclear man-made explosions. And it's a really long, well-researched article, and I simply tap the save button, and we're simply, again, download it with all the media, all the formatting onto the device. And now, just like I will often, if I have time on a bus or on a train, open up the Pocket app or open up the Kindle app, I will open up the Wikipedia app to read all these really interesting, informative articles that I've just sort of collated as interesting things I'm going to be checking out. But once again, it really is now every morning. It is on that list of apps that I check out just to get my brain back online after eight hours of downtime. And sometimes I have to tell myself that, okay, but let's save this for later because we really have to pee. And also we have a train that's going to be leaving in 25 minutes and we haven't showered or shaved yet because it's just such a good app. And it really is just one of the most wonderfully designed apps ever and a perfect complement to the mission of Wikimedia. Bravo, bravo, bravo.
Nice. And free. I remember 25 years ago spending hundreds of dollars for the World Book, which took up a whole shelf for my kids when they were little.
And you had to get annuals every year.
And it was always out of date. Yeah.
A good friend of mine was the film editor at Microsoft Encarta CD-ROM. And
we've come such a long way. It's too bad because Britannica and World Book are practically out of business now. But in your phone, you have the world's knowledge updated all the time.
And whereas, of course, Wikipedia, the word was a punchline to a joke for the first few years when it got started. Oh, great. I know it's a fact because I put it on Wikipedia. Now it is so well, any article that is of any importance or popularity, there are editors and experts that are really on top of it. You can't change it without being changed back really quickly with an edit trail to tell you exactly what happened. So it's still a crowdsourced piece of resource just like any other, so don't trust it 100%. But now if it's my assumption is that if I read it on Wikipedia, I'm still going to double check it, but I'm inclined to believe that it's going to be true when I find out when I check out the actual sources.
I completely agree with you.
Don't believe my page. It's so old and outdated and wrong.
Somebody fix Renee's page. Renee can't, but somebody else can.
Exactly.
Yes, thank you.
And I just think we forget what a great boon that has been. It is such a great resource. I use it every day.
Again, it's not just for trivia for state capitals. There's just interesting articles about again, and then you find yourself, oh well, what was like the biggest accidental explosion? And then you find out reading about Halifax, where and not only that, but here is exactly how the Halifax explosion happened. When you have two ships, one of which not yielding the right of way, but the other ship is loaded with munition supplies due for World War I, and you'd think that you would let that ship have the right of way, but I guess not.
I make a monthly donation to the Wikimedia Foundation. It's one of the charities I support because
I should do that.
It is the best thing ever, and I'm very grateful.
I read it rather than news every night now.
Yeah. Oh, that's smart. Yeah, the news. Yeah. Actually, the news sections are very good on Wikipedia. Yeah. Lori Gill, I have a problem. I'm storing my Apple Card in a leather wallet. I'm worried it's going to get stained. Surely there's got to be a better way.
There has got to be a better way. So Kerf, K-E-R-F, I think I've mentioned before, they make these absolutely gorgeous iPhone cases made out of reclaimed wood. They're phenomenal. They feel good. They look good. Now they have an Apple Card holder.
Guaranteed not to stain.
Guaranteed not to stain. So some people are going to find this to be kind of silly. Why would you need something like this for your Apple Card? I would argue that there are also going to be, and currently are, a lot of people who aren't going to carry Apple Card in their wallet. They just got it because they want to have it. Right. I've talked to people on Twitter that are this way. Here's a display box for you. Here's a nice protective box for you to put it in. Yes, it's thick. You're not going to fit this in your wallet. It's going to be uncomfortable in your back pocket. But it's fancy. It's made out of really nice wood. And, it just makes you that much more pretentious with your Apple Card than you ever were before.
It's the pretentious box Apple left out.
I completely think this is the case that Apple would sell for the Apple Card in their store. They're gorgeous. So
if they wouldn't be mocked mercilessly, you're probably right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which did you pick one? Which wood did you get?
Walnut.
Walnut's beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's my.
I like the darker.
I like that one. Yeah.
I like the darker. A lot of people like spalted maple, but I'm a walnut kind of guy. Yeah. I'm with you on that.
I prefer the
can't get
darker
clickable,
one
don't get walnut.
Yeah, and ultra suede on the inside, which is a leather, but okay, maybe it's a plastic leather. That is right, ultra suede. Is that a leather?
It's
it's Alcantara. It's a faux leather. Okay, so that's guaranteed not to bleed. Renee Ritchie, pick of the week, sir.
So first, Leo, I'm going to have this desperate attempt to lure you back by showing you shiny Lucky Rayquaza.
Oh, Rayquaza's beautiful.
There you go. You can go get them. So my pick of the week, and forgive me if we've mentioned this before, but Nintendo announced a Switch Lite recently. They did introduce a new version, slightly better battery, slightly better CPU for the existing Nintendo Switch, but they also introduced a Switch Lite, which is a different take on it. And I didn't think I'd like it because I have the original Switch, and what I like about it is with my godkids, we plug it into the TV, and then they show me that I am way too old to play games like Super Smash Brothers. Where'd my character go? Why am I falling again? But they love it, and they love playing on the TV. But then I saw a lot of the coverage that this was getting and a lot of the reviews, and it really looks like just a great, less expensive way to take all of the really, really fun Nintendo games. I mean, they're going to have Pokemon Sword and Shield coming out this fall, which I'm sure is going to shatter game records all over again. And the controllers don't come out. It doesn't really switch. So it's kind of honorifically a Switch device. It's a Switch without the Switch part. But if you just want something that's smaller and portable and has the Joy-Cons attached so you can't lose them, you don't have to connect them, it's just super simple, then this looks like a really, really good device. And because my godkids have totally stolen, they take after their mother, Georgia Dow, just totally stolen my technology and left me bereft of Nintendo Switchiness. I was thinking about getting this instead because I don't need to attach it to anything. I'll just play with the device by itself and save myself $100 while I'm doing it.
Very nice. So I don't know if you guys know it, but September 3rd is a national holiday in Japan. It's the day the new Hobonichi Techos come out. And they're here, and it's probably already too late to order them because they sell out fast. This is my favorite day planner. I know you're thinking, Leo, paper day planner? What are you, crazy in this digital age? But these are such works of art. They're so beautiful, and they have such fun colors. I feel bad because I wanted to get this bear cover for Micah. He said he liked it, and it's out of stock already. It won't be back in stock for another month. Sorry, Micah, but there are plenty of them still in stock. Remember, it's a Japanese company, so you want to get the English version of the Hobonichi Techo. Art and Science makes some very nice ones. This is the one I ordered. Just went on sale at 11 a.m. Japan time this morning. I have a Hobonichi from last year. I don't really need a new cover. So the cover is a separate thing. The Hobonichi itself is made out of beautiful paper. It's called Tomogawa paper, which is it's very light, very thin paper, but it's impermeable enough for a fountain pen, which is what I use. In fact, that's one of the reasons I love the Hobonichi covers is because you can thread a fountain pen through the loops and it keeps it closed. It's got lots of pouches and places to store stuff, 2 bookmark tabs, so you can have one for the month and one for the day. If you get the Japanese version, you'll have very pithy Japanese quotes at the bottom, but I like to read the English, so I got the English version with the English quotes. It is just beautifully done day planner. So I don't know if you use a paper planner or not, but these sell out very fast. There are American stores. Sometimes you can get them on Amazon. But if you really want the full choice of the 2020 Techos, they've just come out as of today. And there are a lot of fun covers and great looks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to cost me some money.
This is the one you want, Andy.
You got me back for that flash because I have been trying to find like a writing notebook that was small enough that I could put it in like any bag.
That's why I like it.
And lovely enough that I won't just like leave it someplace. Yep. And
I think you should get the Steve cover because it's a little teddy bear cover. I think it'd be very nice.
I think that would be very
nice
pleasant.
for you.
That would be like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy having "Don't Panic" on the cover.
What I do like the size. They make a variety of them. This is the original kind of day planner with all the days of the year. Each day has a separate page plus a full month calendar every month and a year calendar as well. But they make them with outlining. They make a 5-year version. They make a variety of different ones. So do look at all the different covers and the different kinds of books. There's the planner, the original, which is what I have in English. There's the planner. There's the VEC, and then there's Day Free, which is just unmarked. That won't be out for a while. So
you're a procrastinator. Stay away from the 5-year version.
Yeah. I often forget to write in it, but I think these are wonderful. Of course, you're going to have to sit and look at it for a few months because it doesn't start till January. They have.
You can organize in advance, Leo.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I really like that makes it fun is they have in the back, they have informational, as all good planners do, international country codes, dialing codes, national holidays for every country. But then this is my favorite: a world of traditional sweets from all around the world. Why
didn't Google use that?
Yes, and then the Japanese zodiac, traditional Japanese household items, and international size charts and conversion charts, contacts. But the paper is, you're going to love the paper, Andy. It's very thin and light, but it's beautiful. This Tomogawa paper is
every Apple invite day for next year for us already.
And I bought the non-included but nice to have little card that you could put behind the page for a little harder writing surface. So look at all the accessories. You'll love it.
Can I also say another vote in its favor that I used to buy sketch before even the Newton message pad, before PDAs, before phones. I used to buy a pocket sketchbook that would have notes from everything and where my appointments are and everything I need to take a note someplace would be in there. And that was for 3 or 4 years. And there is nothing more pleasant than 10, 15 years later, 20 years later, going through this book that has all these stickers on it and was been beat to hell because it was carried everywhere and has all these kind of notes from 18 different pens. Yeah. It's like looking through Henry Jones's Grail diary.
That's the reason I started doing it exactly, Andy, because I have all these digital records. I don't really need an analog record, but there's something fun about seeing this coffee stain and the blood stain and the tear stains from years gone past. So just thought I'd pass this along. It's not for everybody. They're a little pricey there, but they're worth it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to. Actually, I think there's. Is that
or an iPhone? They're not that.
I think there's a Japanese stationery store near Bryant Park that sells them.
They might have them.
I think now that I've seen them again, that I almost bought one last year, but I'm going to be in New York in a couple of years, a couple of weeks, and I think I'm going to have to leave some money behind it.
That's where the future office is. We're doomed. We're doomed, Lori.
I do like the fuzzy teddy bear one. I should get one for you, Andy. Maybe get you the teddy bear cover. I think it just seems like it's Andy, doesn't it?
You need to, if you're going to be consulting something for information, sometimes startling information, you're going to want to see it's okay. Look, fuzzy teddy bear.
Could plan out your metaphors for 2020 right now.
I just love it. Hey, thank you everybody for joining us. Always a pleasure to talk about Apple. Next week, of course, we're going to have a lot to talk about. We don't know what. Maybe new iPhones. I don't know. Join us at the usual time right after the Apple event. Our coverage begins at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern time. You can watch live at live.twit.tv or twit.tv/live. Actually, that's the better one, twit.tv/live. Renee Ritchie, he is going to be in the Bay Area, I think, next week. I have a feeling. But you can catch his coverage at imore.com. And, of course, the Vector podcast is a daily effort that's always well worth watching, imore.com/Vector. Thank you, Renee, for being here. Safe travels. We'll talk, I guess, in 2 weeks. So much. Yeah. Andy Ihnatko, catch him this week and every week on WGBH in Boston. What day today? this week?
Friday again, 1 p.m., and we are going to be doing it from the WGBH radio studios at the Boston Public Library. So
nice.
It's open to the public, by all means. They usually have really cool guests. That's last time the guest before me was Ellen Rooney, was a legendary and beloved journalist in the Boston area. Michael Dukakis, former governor and presidential candidate, a current Democratic presidential candidate, and coming up next, Andy Anatko. Like, okay.
Oh, boy. I am not running for anything, Andy says.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. But he looks good in the tank. That's the difference. And Lori Gill, you'll find her at iMore as well, managing editor, imore.com. We're out on the street in front of Apple Park on Tuesday, begging
with my
for
patchouli oil.
Tidbits with her patchouli oil and her tie-dyed dirndl. Great to have you, Lori. Appaholic on the Twitter. We thank you all for joining us every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1700 UTC. That's when we start streaming live at twit.tv/live. You can also join us in the chat room if you're watching live. They're interacting with us via type. It's an old-fashioned way of modern communication, irc.twit.tv. If you can't be here in person or in live land, you should always download every episode because that way you won't miss one. You could find them at the website, twit.tv/mbw, but the easiest thing to do is subscribe in your favorite podcast application or on YouTube, and that way you'll get it automatically the minute it's available. Thanks for being here, everybody. Now time to get back to work because break time is over. See you next time.